Hey everybody, welcome to the Preacher and the Prodigy remote edition. We're going mobile for this one. I'm still in the Diamond Vocal Studios in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and the Preacher is over at his parents' house in Orange City, Iowa, having some meetings at Northwestern College. And we had to figure out a way to do this one mobily, so we're doing it over reliable Zoom. And we're ready to get week 6 of the college football season underway. So far, it's been a fairly good season, both as Michigan fans and just as college football fans in general. Looking ahead to this week, it's not looking too well. There's one ranked matchup, so it's going to be another day where if you got a project you want to work on, this would be a weekend to do it because next week we got a lot of fun games going down.
So week
You
week
want to start
week
with
se
Michigan game?
week 7 is coming, huh?
7 is coming, October 12th. Let's start off with what happened last week at the Big House, the rainy Big House, which we went to. It was a fun experience. The second half got a little sketchy. That onside kick definitely put some fright into my bones, but we got away with a victory. Your thoughts on a 3-point win versus the Gophers?
Yeah, we got really wet at the game, but it is the classic tale of two halves. I think Michigan played really fairly well in the first half, or maybe more accurately, Minnesota played terribly in the first half. And they met and then changed places in the second half. A really odd end to the first half. Strange play, kind of a Hail Mary down at the one. On replay, the ball was incomplete. Michigan does not challenge it. So, understandably so, if you challenge it and you lose the challenge, Minnesota might go for a touchdown there. Michigan should have substituted since Minnesota brought their kicking team on
Yeah.
and the clock would have run out. That's all things that happen in the fog of war. But the second half, Michigan's offense just absolutely putrid. Alex Orji, no threat at all downfield, is not running at all on designed plays. Once in a while he scrambles, but those scrambles this week were for 2 and 3 yards. He didn't even get turned up field. He just kind of ran to the sideline. Michigan's defense did not play particularly badly most of the time. They were down two of their best players, Will Johnson and Josiah Stewart, and it turns out that makes a difference when you lose the best player in the country and
Yeah.
probably a third-team All-American defensive end. And Minnesota just kept dumping the ball to Taylor over and over and over again, picking up 7, 8, 9 yards, and then a couple of big plays including a touchdown pass in the end zone that was upheld on review as a touchdown. Pretty impressive. The offsides play at the end, much talked about on replay. The Minnesota player may not have been offsides, but clearly there was contact with the Michigan player before the ball had gone 10 yards downfield. So
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it was the right call, it was the right result, a re-kick. Word out of Michigan was they were prepared to challenge the ruling on the field because they saw clearly that Minnesota had made contact and they would have had to re-kick anyway. So congratulations, Gophers, on getting up off the mat and making it a very close game. Michigan, you're terrifying us here because there's just not an offensive threat. And this season is going just the way we said it would go.
Mm-hmm.
And with the exception maybe of the USC game, this is what we thought would happen. And now
Yeah.
we turn out of Ann Arbor westward to go to Seattle with a matchup against the Huskies, unranked, coming off a loss to Rutgers, and yet favored to win this game.
Yeah. That game is looking very, very scary. A little bit more on the. It really seemed like in the second half, Minnesota seemed to turn it up on defense, not just Michigan being bad play calling, but also the Minnesota linebackers. You could look at guys like Cody Lindenberg. They were beating Kalel Mullings and Donovan Edwards to the edge out in space, and they were beating Alex Orji to the edge out in space. And it really seemed like they were playing with a fire that they did not have in the second or in the first half rather. And Darius Taylor gets in the end zone, okay, a little more momentum. Darius Taylor gets in the end zone again, a little more momentum. And it starts to look like, okay, well, Minnesota's really rallying here. And Michigan offensively just did not respond. In the first half, it looked like it was very easy for them to run the football, whether that was miscues on Minnesota's second level defenders or whether Michigan was just doing that well. It did not seem to be that way in the second half. And like you said, it was the dink and dunk game to Darius Taylor. We were playing so far back, not wanting anything to get beat over our heads without Will Johnson, and they would just toss the ball down right in front of Max Brosmer's face, and he'd just get 9 yards of play. And you can't have that if you're a Michigan defense, and it almost costs. But you mentioned going out to Big Ten territory in Seattle. I'm very nervous for this game. I think it could go haywire really quickly because if Max Brosmer is able to tear up the defense, or is able to take advantage rather of the defense, I'm scared for what Will Rogers can do, because even though they've not been able to score, in the red zone, they've been able to move the ball very efficiently between the 20s.
And Jed Fish can coach offense very, very well. I assume Michigan will be back to full strength, relatively speaking. And I just think it's tough to play in Husky Stadium anyway.
Yeah.
And when you've got a quarterback who cannot come to the line, make the checks, be at the switch, at the controls to diagnose a defense and then get us in a good play. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. So let's move into our predictions for that.
Yeah, so this line is very interesting. Well, before we go to that, last week, you had predicted Michigan to win.
24 to
What's what?
13.
24 to 10. You had 24 to
24.
10. I had 31 to 9, and it was definitely looking that way until Minnesota made things close late. So you were 17 points off. I was 19 points off. So 4 points separate us through 5 weeks of the Michigan season. Tight race for that. Who knows how to predict Michigan football games better in terms of picking games around the country. We are both knotted at 14 and 11 against the spread. That's still very good. If you were in Vegas, you'd be able to make plenty of money off that. Going into this week, not a lot of pretty games to look at. Like we said, there's one ranked matchup, so it's just going to be a lot of picking the lines when they're a high point spread, not a lot of close games. So maybe some upset potential. But overall, not going to be a very interesting week. We can start with the Michigan game. This line has fluctuated a little bit. It started Michigan favored, I believe, went all the way to Washington -3. It's now Washington -1.5. So essentially a pick'em game. This is a night game, so you got that going for you. Husky Stadium's gonna be rocking. Oregon learned that last year. It is loud down or up there rather. Who's got to go first? You got to go first, or I'll go first.
I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna take Washington to cover. I think this game is something like 25 to 13. So it's similar scores I predicted last week. I think Michigan's defense will hold down Washington for a minute, and maybe on the whole play fairly well. But I just think turnovers are going to cost Michigan short fields with crowd noise. I think that Washington now knows to just maybe play single high or cover zero and just creep up and make Alex Orji prove it to you even once, much less a couple of times before you get too afraid. Jed Fish can coach offense. Yeah. I think it's a difficult place to play. I'm going to take Washington rather 25 to 13.
Yeah, I'm agree with you. I think it's going to be a little bit closer game than that. I don't see a lot on Washington's and on the defensive side of the ball for them to show me that they're much better defensively than Minnesota is. So I still think Michigan will be able to move the ball like a little bit and not get completely smoked. I think they score more than 13, but I don't think they score more than 24. And I think that's enough for Washington to not have the miscues that they had last week against Rutgers when they got close to the goal line. And I think that Washington is going to win this game. It's not going to be pretty, but the final score is probably going to be closer than what is seen on the field. Give me Washington to cover. They win this game 31-21.
Oofda. What is the over-under? You're picking 52 points in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be higher scoring than people expected. I mean, like so far, it's not like besides the
Does
Texas
Michigan
game,
have a worse defense or a better offense than Rutgers? Neither.
I'm not sure. I think they've got a
And
better
that was
offense
20,
than Rutgers.
and that was 21 to 18.
I
You
mean,
think Michigan has
I
a
think
better
they've got a
offense
better
than
offense.
Rutgers?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, we'll
I
see.
believe that. Rutgers really just has fun guy Manung guy back there, and I mean, I'd rather take Alex Orji than Ethan Kaliakmanis for my quarterback personally. But a worse defense, no, they got a better defense. But I think there were so many miscues for Washington last week, to where they easily could have won that game. I think the yard differential for the game was like 500 to 200 in favor of Washington, but they still lost. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think they're going to have to tighten up the knots there and realize it's a bigger game, home game in Seattle. So give me
Okay.
Washington to cover a little bit higher game. We agree. We move on to a Friday night game where Michigan State goes also out west to Oregon. This is
A 23
um,
point line for Oregon.
a 23-point spread. Last week, Michigan State got handled on their home field by Ohio State. They lost by 31 there. Jeremiah Smith doing Jeremiah Smith things, making one-handed catches and making plays, absurd plays that look easy.
Jeremiah Smith doing
Um,
Marvin Harrison things. I mean, he's good. JJ
yeah,
Smith is good.
just 23-point favorite for Oregon. So I'll
Yeah.
go first. This is an interesting line because I don't often see a 23-point spread. You kind of have to think, okay, what scores are they thinking up in their head? Down in Vegas. I think Oregon is probably going to cover. I think going out west for a Friday night game, there's a little bit of interest looking at how the road team is going to handle it. And I think that real is going to cook up that Michigan State secondary, like many quarterbacks have been able to do in recent history. And I really think there's going to be a lot of yards on the Oregon side of the ball. As for Michigan State trying to move the ball, I don't really see it. I think Oregon's got too many players defensively. Give me the Ducks to cover a big 23-point spread.
All right. For fun, I'm going to take Sparty. Michigan State has played a couple of games on the road. I mean, it's a really good benchmark to see what Oregon can do to Michigan State versus what Ohio State's done to them. Like you said, Ohio State did beat them up on their own field by 31 in a night game, which is impressive. But I don't know if Oregon quite has the firepower. I'm going to take Oregon to win this game 31 to 10. Give me Michigan State to cover though, just inside the number. I think
All
Michigan
right.
State can slow Oregon down just a little bit more and maybe play a little bit more disciplined than they did. They do have road experience, Boston College, Maryland. So I'm gonna go with Sparty.
All right. Speaking of the Buckeyes, they host Iowa this week in a mid-afternoon game on CBS. Iowa 3-1, really looking good season so far. Caleb Johnson certainly is a guy that's going to draw your attention. I think he's got nearing 600 yards and 10, 11 touchdowns through first 4 or 5 games of the season. He's really looking strong in that new Tim Lester offense, but what are they going to be able to do in the snake pit? We shall see. The Buckeyes are favored by 18.5. This line came down a lot today. So bettors, I guess, really liking the Hawkeyes to cover this one.
Yeah. It's a good line because I feel like something like 28 to 10 is possible. Iowa still knows how to play defense. I'm going to take Ohio State at home, though. I just don't think Cade McNamara is ready to push his team that far. And I think Ohio State can sell out to stop the run. So I'm going to take the Buckeyes to win and to cover.
Yeah, I agree with you here. The last time Iowa went to the shoe, they got blown out. I think it was like 54-12, maybe.
And
I
they
think it
had
was
like 5 interceptions or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, with a better Ohio State roster, it looks like they have the potential to do that again. This is the best team that Ohio State has faced. They have not had a close matchup all year. And certainly Iowa is going to give
A lot of
them
disrespect to put
um,
on Marshall, but
going to give them a little more run for the money than the other teams have. But I think this is a game that Ohio State can handle really well, and I think the hype train for the Buckeyes, do or die, Ryan Day's do or die championship campaign is going to continue heading in that direction. Give me the Buckeyes to win this game big.
yeah, they'll set up a big game next week. I mean, but probably
Mm-hmm.
one of the, you look at before the season started, or Ohio State, Oregon, and Georgia, Texas. Um, and now Georgia has lost, so this might be one of the biggest games left on the schedule nationally
Yep.
until we get to crunch time down the stretch.
Yeah, great segue into the Georgia game. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. 4 games to pick. Georgia is hosting Auburn. This is also a mid-afternoon game. The Dogs are favored by 22. I can go first. I don't care. I think Georgia's going to cover this game. They always bounce back. And, Peyton, the quarterback situation at Auburn is not looking good. I think Peyton Thorne's going to start, but they're kind of running a 2 quarterback thing, just like Michigan is. And that has not shown well for any team that's been able to do that. Give me the Dogs to win this game big at home.
Weird things happen. I'm going to take Auburn, to just muck things up a little bit and keep it inside that number. So I'm going to go Tigers.
All right, last game. More Tigers. This is the only ranked matchup of the week. It is number 9 Missouri going to College Station, Texas, playing number 25 Texas A&M. The Aggies are favored by 2 at home. This is an 11 o'clock game. So Kyle Field will be rocking as always. This is not a lot we know about these
No.
teams and how they match up, really. Missouri hasn't had a hard test all year yet. Their schedule, and they will continue to have that the rest of the way into the SEC. Meanwhile, Texas A&M had to host Notre Dame, and they got beat at home. So Cal Field isn't impossible to win at, but it's not the easiest place in the world to play.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the Aggies at home. I don't have any idea about this game, I'll be honest. It's kind of just a shot in the dark. It's a pick 'em game effectively. Um, I think Notre Dame's better than Missouri. And so I'm just gonna take Texas A&M here.
All right, I'll disagree. I'll take Missouri. I think that there is a lot of potential when just throwing the ball up to Luther Burden, and I think that's something that they could take advantage of here. Missouri lately has been the better team. Texas A&M still trying to get back to that tier 2, tier 1 level of college football.
And he's frozen.